Hello and welcome to Bleeding Tree Gaming. My name's Amy, aka Warpfiend, and in this episode I'm going to be looking at my new basing scheme for my Nurgle forces. I've had this army a long time, and originally I did something super quick with just some Stirland mud and Nurgle's rot, but I wanted to revisit them and make them a little bit more interesting to get the feel of this kind of decaying swamp. Partially inspired by the Rotmire Creed, I've brought in this reedy dead bamboo and some various clumps of vegetation around the place. Let's dive in. So first of all, I want to add a little bit of three-dimensionality to the base, so I'm going to take some of this cork board. It's really cheap to buy a big roll of this stuff and it's excellent for basing. I've had this roll for years and I've barely touched it, just been tearing chunks off the corner as and when I need it. I'm just going to tear off a rough chunk that will fit the base of this Pusgoyle Blight Lord. I just pick away at the chunk of cork until it's a vaguely natural shape, no hard lines and plenty of variation. Then I'm just going to superglue it to the centre of my base and hold it down until it's fully dried. You can use PVA to secure this, but you'll have to use something heavy to keep it flat and leave it for a few hours, so I prefer to just use superglue. Next I'm going to bring in my basing mix. Now you can use anything for this or even make your own, but I picked up this Kraut Cover Soil of Sparta that has a nice mix of sand, small stones, flock and little shrubby bushes. I really like the Kraut Cover mixes, it just saves me a bit of time that I can spend on other things. So I'm going to cover almost all of the base in PVA glue, leaving only a few patches around the edges that will be pools of oozing slime. I want to keep those parts as flat as possible. Once it's all covered, I'm going to get that basing mix on there, trying to get as good a coverage as I possibly can. You can see it's looking lovely and textured now, so the next thing to do is paint it up. I'm just going to spray it black and jump forward until it's dry. Now that's primed, I'm going to paint the whole thing in a dark brown, in this case Pro Acryl Mahogany. If you're using GW paints, a Rhinox hide would work really well here. Then I'm going to give it a few dry brushes. So first I hit all the plants with a bright yellow green, which is pretty similar to moot green. After that I hit the rest of the ground with Scrag Brown. This is such a lovely colour that's surprisingly hard to find an exact match for. Finally I'm going to hit the whole thing with a light dry brush of Zandri Dust. The last bit of regular paint on the main part of this base is some dark jade that's going to colour the bottom of our slime pools, just in case anything shows through on the next step. Okay, so the trick to getting these slime pools is some Nurgle's Rot. Now I've used this technical paint on my Nurgle bases for around 10 years and it's never let me down. I want to lay down quite a thick layer of it, so I keep bringing my brush back to the pot to pile it on there. Immediately after filling the pools, I'm going to grab a healthy dollop of some Tesseract Glow and just let it dribble in there to naturally diffuse out throughout that Nurgle's Rot. This will give a lovely natural mix of oozy greens. Let this dry naturally, as if you turn a hairdryer on it, that thick layer of Nurgle's Rot is going to go everywhere. Once it's dry, if the pools have reduced too much, you can do what I do here and repeat the entire process over again. After the second time, you should have some lovely deep seaming pools, but just to make them nice and wet and slimy, I'm going to drop a similarly thick layer of some gloss varnish on the pools. After that dries, that's our ooze done, so time to get this sickly dead bamboo up next. This stuff is available from a lot of hobby retailers. You get lovely big bags of this bamboo that's made of metal wires with a plastic outer coating and leaves. I got the largest size, which is a little too big for minis, but we'll cut it down before using it. First up, I want to paint it because it looks a bit too green and plasticky right now. All I'm going to do for this is take a large brush and some sandy dust and literally just slap it on. Make sure you clear out anywhere the paint clumps, but don't worry about covering every part of the bamboo. Those parts you miss just add to the effect of this brown, dead or mud covered foliage with just a few little hints of green poking out. Once that's dry, I'm going to cut a few little sections to a size that seems to suit the base I'm working on. I selectively clip off some of the leaves to give a nice bit of variation. Put those leaves to one side because we'll be using those later. Now I test the bits of bamboo with the model on the base to make sure they fit well and don't interfere. I take my drill with an appropriately sized bit and drill holes where I want the bamboo to sit. This is going to secure it on the base so you can glue them on. Simply apply super glue to the base of the bamboo and insert it in the hole you drilled. I'm going to repeat this process all around the base until I'm satisfied. Don't go too crazy with them, but a nice mix of sizes around should look good. Now I'm going to take a couple of those spare leaves and apply a little super glue to them and stick them around the base as well. These are a little harder to stick solidly, but once you get the hang of it you can get some nice effects. Finally, I'm going to fill out the rest of the base with some tufts. I use a mix of a few different saturations of green and yellow tufts and just dot them around the base to fill out that swampy look. Finally, I paint the base room and that's our Nurgle swamp base finished. I hope you like this. It's just a little cool thing I came up with after playing around. I also want to shout out the person who I played against recently who had a very cool Seraphon army that used this bamboo among other things on their bases. I already had a bunch of this lying around and it inspired me to jazz up my Nurgle basing scheme. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to check the description to buy us a coffee or to follow us on Discord, Facebook or any of the other social medias. I've been Warpfiend and this is Bleeding Tree Gaming and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!